The lights haven't gone out yet, and Ferrari is already playing a different game. Down the main straight in Melbourne, the telemetry shows something unusual. The throttle opens, energy harvest spikes, and then, curiously, the speed plateaus. Not a limitation, a decision. On the timing screen, it looks simple. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton first and second in the opening session of Formula One's brand new 2026 era. But the numbers underneath that lap tell a different story. Ferrari wasn't pushing flat out. They were deliberately sacrificing straight-line speed to harvest electrical energy. And that leaves one question echoing around the paddock. If this was Ferrari with the handbrake on, what happens when Frederic Vasseur finally lets go? Every Formula One season has a moment when the paddock quietly realizes something has changed. In Melbourne's FP1, that moment arrived with one number: 1 minute, 20.267 seconds. At first glance, it was simply the fastest lap of the opening practice session. But engineers watching the telemetry noticed something strange. Ferrari wasn't maximizing straight-line speed. The car repeatedly hit a small plateau before reaching full velocity. That plateau wasn't a weakness, it was strategy. Ferrari was aggressively harvesting electrical energy into the ERS, using a technique known as superclipping. Instead of deploying maximum power down the straight, they were storing energy for later sectors of the lap. In simple terms, Ferrari wasn't chasing the fastest lap. They were building an energy advantage, and yet, even while doing that, they still finished half a second ahead of the nearest Red Bull. Not half a tenth, half a second. In the first session of an entirely new regulation cycle. That gap forced rival engineers to ask an uncomfortable question. If Ferrari could lead while limiting straight-line performance, what would the SF26 look like when it finally ran at full deployment? But the bigger surprise came from inside the Ferrari garage. Lewis Hamilton, beginning his new chapter with the team, looked immediately comfortable with the car. His runs were calm and precise, and after adjusting engine braking maps, his pace suddenly improved by 0.3. That kind of instant feedback loop between driver and car is rare, and perhaps even Ferrari didn't expect it so quickly. But Friday's story in Melbourne was only beginning, because a few hours later the timing screens would tell a completely different story. When FP2 began, the narrative changed immediately. At the top of the timing sheet appeared a new number: 1 minute, 19.729 seconds. Oscar Piastri, fastest in front of his home crowd. Suddenly, Ferrari's morning dominance looked like a mirage. By the end of the session, Hamilton had dropped to P4 and Leclerc to P5, while Mercedes placed Russell and Antonelli in P2 and P3. On the surface, the conclusion was obvious. Ferrari had shown their pace early. Everyone else had caught up. But the telemetry told a very different story. Throughout FP2, Ferrari ran heavy fuel loads and focused on long-run simulations rather than qualifying laps. Engineers were evaluating tire wear, energy deployment, and race distance consistency. In other words, they were building Sunday's strategy. And the sector data revealed something interesting. Even in traffic and under yellow flags, Leclerc's sector times remained close to McLaren's, despite carrying significantly more fuel. When Ferrari analysts normalized those fuel loads, the result suggested the SF26 was roughly 0.2 faster in race trim. Across a 58-lap race, that margin becomes significant. Meanwhile, McLaren's runs appeared noticeably lighter on fuel. Ferrari wasn't chasing applause on Friday, they were preparing for the race. Yet both Ferrari drivers still delivered a cautious message afterward. The car has potential. The base is solid. But it needs to keep evolving. Inside Ferrari, those words carry history. Because Maranello has heard them before. Fast in March, struggling by September, and no one at Ferrari wants to repeat that story. The 2026 regulation reset has created 3 completely different engineering philosophies. Ferrari built a floor-first car focused on ground effect efficiency and integrated energy harvesting. The result is impressive traction exiting slow corners and stable aerodynamic performance without extreme rear wing angles. Drivers can apply throttle earlier without destabilizing the rear axle. Mercedes took a very different route. Their concept revolves around an aggressive downwash aerodynamic architecture, pushing massive airflow toward the rear wing to create exceptional straight-line stability. At times, the airflow behavior almost resembles a jet intake feeding the rear structures. McLaren's philosophy focuses on tire flow control, optimizing airflow around the rear wing and floor edges to stabilize tire temperatures over long runs. Each team is solving the same rulebook in a different way, and right now the performance gap between them is tiny. But Ferrari's engineers already recognize one weakness. Under heavy braking and cooler track conditions, the car can develop slight oversteer, partly caused by aggressive ERS recovery settings disturbing the balance. It's not a major flaw, but in Formula One, even small instabilities can matter. Ferrari believes the issue can be refined overnight through calibration changes. Still, the driver's cautious public comments suggest a deeper concern. Because Ferrari has often built fast cars at the beginning of seasons, the real challenge has always been keeping them competitive for 20-plus races. Amid the technical details, one story inside Ferrari stands out. Lewis Hamilton looks comfortable again. Throughout much of 2025, Hamilton often seemed disconnected from his machinery. Feedback between driver and engineers sometimes felt out of sync. In Melbourne, that dynamic appears different. Radio transcripts from FP1 show a calm, analytical driver working closely with the pit wall to refine engine braking and deployment settings. When one adjustment unlocked 0.3, the improvement appeared immediate. That kind of response builds confidence quickly. Ferrari engineers reportedly expected Hamilton to need more time adapting to the team's systems. Instead, he appears to be settling in rapidly. For Charles Leclerc, the situation is more complex. Leclerc has carried Ferrari's expectations for years, often delivering brilliant qualifying laps only to see races slip away through strategy or reliability issues. Now he shares the garage with a 7-time world champion. And in the very first session of 2026, Hamilton matched him almost immediately. That internal rivalry could elevate Ferrari's performance. Two elite drivers pushing each other often unlock new speed, but it also introduces pressure. Because championships are rarely decided only by external rivals, sometimes the biggest battle happens inside the same garage. While Ferrari analyzed its data, chaos unfolded elsewhere in the paddock. Red Bull, dominant for the past 4 seasons, suddenly looked vulnerable. During FP2, Max Verstappen stalled in the pit lane, and throughout the session he struggled with snap oversteer and braking instability. Reports suggested integration problems within the team's Ford power unit systems, particularly with sensor calibration. Yet his teammate Isaac Hadjar managed to keep the same car consistently within the top 10, which suggests the RB22 isn't fundamentally broken. It's simply operating in a window engineers haven't fully mastered yet. For a team that dominated the previous era, that uncertainty is unusual. Elsewhere, Aston Martin faced an even stranger problem. Technical legend Adrian Newey revealed the team had only 2 functioning Honda battery units left after harmonic vibrations from the new 2026 power units began destroying cells. Mechanics worked past 4 in the morning after the FIA temporarily lifted the curfew to allow repairs. For Fernando Alonso, Sunday's race may begin in a car running on fragile hardware and determination. That's the brutal reality of a regulation reset. New technology always brings opportunity, but it also brings fragility. Ferrari's entire Friday program suggested one priority: race consistency. Rather than chasing qualifying glory, the team focused on long-run simulations and energy management across extended stints. The goal was to maintain stable electrical deployment across an entire straight, instead of exhausting the battery early in the lap. In modern Formula One, energy management can decide overtaking opportunities. If a driver exits the final corner with stronger deployment, that advantage can translate directly into a pass before the next braking zone. Ferrari's simulation suggested the SF26 could maintain competitive pace deep into tire stints. Across a 58-lap race, that consistency could become a decisive advantage. But rivals are close. Mercedes appears extremely strong on high fuel, and McLaren's tire management may allow them to extend stints longer than anyone else, which means Sunday's race could become a strategic chess match, not simply a battle of speed. Melbourne will not decide the 2026 championship, but it may reveal the early direction of the season. Ferrari has not won a constructors' title since 2008. For a team of its history, that drought has become impossible to ignore. The arrival of Lewis Hamilton signaled a clear attempt to change that. Pairing him with Charles Leclerc gives Ferrari one of the strongest driver lineups on the grid, and early data suggests the SF26 may be one of the most balanced cars in the field. If Ferrari's projected 2/10 race advantage proves accurate, the team could finally have a platform capable of fighting for the title over an entire season. But the competition remains fierce. Mercedes appears revitalized, McLaren enters as defending champions, and Red Bull rarely stays vulnerable for long, which makes Melbourne a fascinating first benchmark, because it may reveal which teams truly understand the new regulations, and which teams are still searching. Friday in Melbourne didn't reveal a clear hierarchy. Instead, it revealed a fascinating balance. Ferrari appears to have built a car defined by traction, aerodynamic efficiency, and sophisticated energy management. Mercedes has produced an aggressive aerodynamic concept capable of extraordinary stability. McLaren continues to master tire control over long runs. 3 philosophies. 3 potential championship contenders. And somewhere behind them, Red Bull is still searching for answers. Ferrari's approach on Friday suggested something important. They weren't chasing headlines, they were gathering information. And if the SF26 truly has more performance hidden beneath conservative setups, the rest of the grid may soon discover how dangerous that patience can be.